Hello, hello, and welcome back to the American Scouser podcast. Listeners, you're in for a treat tonight. We've got a wonderful group of gents here with me tonight. Jamie, your host. I'm joined tonight with Paul, Parker, and Timuchin. How are we all doing, lads?
We're good. We're good. Better than our offense, I guess.
As per usual, Timuchin straight off the bat, all about the business. Let's go.
Tim.
Let's go. So, obviously, this is our first podcast of the year. We've got some news that I'm sure all Liverpool fans have heard with the passing of Jerry Marsden from Jerry and the Pacemakers. All of us at American Scouser would like to pay our respects to the man himself. Truly a Scouser that'll never walk alone. Died 78 years of age. Had his funeral there the other day, and it would have been nice for the fans to be there at Anfield to sing "You'll Never Walk Alone" as loud as they possibly could. I'm sure it would have been heard all the way up in Manchester and probably even all the way over here to the eastern shore of America. But without further ado, lads, we'll jump straight into the big one. Liverpool, of course, drew 1-1 with Everton today, the under-23s. No, I'm joking. We're talking about United.
I was like, when do we score?
Yeah, the under-23s did today. Unfortunately, another draw. But there you go. Big one at the weekend, like we were saying, at Anfield without the fans. So let's just start with the facts, shall we? Timuchin, we'll start with you. The facts, time of recording here, Monday night, like I said, the under-23s drew tonight. But the facts are, we're there or thereabouts. We're 3 points off the top, aren't we? We're halfway through the season. If I had told you at the start of the season that we'd find ourselves in this sort of spot, I wouldn't have obviously been able to call the injuries. But would you have taken it? Being 3 points off the top?
I mean, I would take it over being 5 points off the top, I guess. But I don't know, like just looking at the last, I mean, when we look, and this is why, we talked about this before about like looking at the schedule and not trying to, count the chickens before they hatch kind of thing. But when we looked at the schedule, maybe, I don't know, like 3-4 weeks ago, it almost looked like we were going to like an easier patch in the year where like we're playing, Fulham and stuff like that. And we almost got the feeling and the hope that we would almost use this time to kind of like make a gap between us and number two. Like, we thought it would be City at the time or like Spurs. But I mean, I feel like, I think we were talking about it during the game on our Discord channel. I feel like I've been watching the same game for like 500 to 600 minutes straight of, us in possession, trying to break down a defense and just not being able to do it. So I think, I mean, to answer your question, I guess, yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's not a disaster scenario like some people are like already jumping off the bridge, which it was way too freaking early for that. But having said that, it is concerning. So you can only say, oh, it's just like a phase for so long before you kind of like, you got to realize there's a problem there and we got to kind of like address it and fix what we can.
And Paul, Timuchin's pretty much hit the nail on the head there, what I'm trying to get at. It's not all doom and gloom. We're doing all right. So, I mean, same question to you. Like, you can see what Timuchin's getting at. It's not all doom and gloom. However, halfway through the season, not terrible, despite everything that's gone on.
No, I mean, it's definitely not all doom and gloom. I think the interesting thing is like people forget that this side seems to do this every year at about this time. Right. We kind of traditionally have this like post-Christmas slump. I think the difference this time is that the goals have dried up in a way that we've never seen before. And I think that's the concerning thing. And then, of course, we've got a variety of things that are sort of like these hot topics, right? Like, why aren't we buying a center back? Why are all our players injured? Like, we'd be on top of the table and 12 points clear if Diego Jota was playing. I mean, there's all these like other like sort of hot topics that swirl around it. But when you like sort of pan out it and look at it from 1,000 feet up, I think we have a natural dip in form for whatever reason at this time of year. At the end of the day, like we've got the best manager in the world 20 games ago.
Absolutely. And Parker, you know, like we're all saying, it's not doom and gloom. There are upsides to this. You know, it's not, there are positives to take from all of this. We're a depleted and dejected side right now. So, like, you know, give me some of your positives, you know?
I mean, knock on wood, we haven't been having additional injuries. You know, I think that's a healthy team is positive. You know, every week is 1 week closer to having Jota back. It's 1 week closer to having, you know, any other given player that's injured back. You know, we're not in a relegation battle. You know, there's practically speaking no chance of us going down a league. I mean, it could be a lot worse. Obviously, we've been very spoiled, you know, the past few years. But the team could be in a much, much worse position than it is right now. I mean, we're still in the battle for first. No matter what way you put it out, we're not even halfway through the season yet.
Oh, absolutely.
And just a few points out of first. Yeah, it's going to be a tight race. Big deal. You know, that's what it is. It's a competition. That's what we want, is for it to be a tight race. If we're going to be blowing them out every single week, wouldn't be fun to watch.
No.
So, I mean, I think, yeah, it does suck that we've been playing like crap, that we can't score a goal, you know, playing like crap by our standards, rather. But we could be in so much worse of a position. You know, we could have players leaving left and right. We could have a crap manager. We could be losing a lot of money. We could be in financial trouble where we have to sell players. You know, it's the sky ain't falling yet, I guess, is my big takeaway positivity wise.
And, you know, Klopp kind of touched on it a bit on his post-match interview. He's quoted as saying, I know that football fans in general are not the most patient species on the planet. So they want to win each game of football, which, you know, that's the best manager in the world there, bringing everybody down to earth. But Timuchin, you know, and I'm sure you've had a chance to read our wonderful Mr. Bickler's player ratings here. For all those listeners, go ahead, give it a read, because it's fantastic. There's also lots of other articles which we can talk on later, especially the Jordan Gerrard one about the history between Man United and Liverpool. It's a great read. Get on that if you can. But as we're talking about the ratings, and Paul, we'll come to you in a minute. Paul really hit the nail on the head there with quite a number of you know, man of the match performances from some players, but Salah with a 4, you know. And I'm not raking you over the coals here, Paul. I agree with you. But would you say, Timuchin, that it's 50-50? Luke Shaw had a game really that is uncharacteristic of him, and so did Mo as well.
I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, that's not the first time we've seen that, where Shaw was able to handle Mo. And I mean, it's part of it is Mo's trying to like out muscle the chubby Shaw is not like a good equation in my head. Because I mean, I feel like, you know, I mean, most fans will not want to admit it because, first of all, it's freaking Shaw we're talking about, but he kind of has Mo's number over the last couple of games. I mean, even last year, I mean, yeah, Mo scored that goal, but I mean, it was like James chasing him down on a counter from like Ali's kick. So I feel like, I mean, I agree with Bickler's rating. It's frustrating to watch the front three because it feels like all of them are doing the same thing repeatedly, especially in like Mo and Mane. It's becoming, I mean, obviously we watch this team a lot, but so does scouting departments. It almost becomes a bit more predictable in terms of what we're going to do. So obviously it's probably easier to defend us. But yeah, I mean, Mo constantly trying to out-muscle him instead of, you know, like facing up and like taking him on. I feel like, you know, if the advantage is there, it's probably Mo's pace over like trying to out-muscle him and, you know, trying to control him and stuff. It just felt like we were watching the same thing over and over again, but we watched it the last couple of weeks too. I mean, I said it during the game and I still am confused as why they didn't give it a longer shot. At one point they swapped wings and Mane was on the right. It only lasted like a few minutes. I don't know. It almost felt like they were trying it, or I don't know if just like ended up being that way and they stayed there, kind of like what Trent and Robo do sometimes after like a corner kick or something like that. But I really felt like that would have been a better matchup, because if Mane faces up to Shaw and takes him down, to the line or whatever and cuts in, I feel like he has the agility to do so. And I think Mo could have used his muscle on the other side against their right back. So it's just like frustrating, but I guess, I do agree with Bickler's rating. I thought it was very poor from Salah, and you can kind of see the frustration in them. And this is what basically happens, when you have the confidence, everything goes your way. When you don't have the confidence, you're kind of like trying to scramble and trying to get it back. It almost feels like we're trying to get a tap in. We know, a shot that we know is going to be a goal. And that makes it even tougher, because now you're trying to get that shot and you can't get it. It's like kind of like a constantly evolving thing. Anybody who's played the game, if you have a batch where you're like kind of any position in the field, like defense, midfield, in defense, like if you're trying to build up play, you don't have the confidence, you're probably booting it because you don't make a mistake instead of making a smart pass. It's kind of like the same feel. Like I get the feeling that they just do not have that confidence now. And I think it's only a game away, a decent game away, or maybe like 2 games back to back where, like they kind of like share the goals and stuff like that. But just got to get there. We know their quality. It just has to be a matter of time. I just, we'll probably talk about it, but I feel like the biggest part is getting our midfield back to what it should be to help the boys up front.
Absolutely. I think you touched on a few great points as well there. I do think Sadio's got a much more physical side to him than Mo. But Parker, assuming that you had the time to read Paul's ratings, he really did hit the nail on the head. Some really standout performances. Bickler put the nail on the head with Ali. If there was any other goalkeeper there, we lose that game. Fabinho done brilliantly. And like myself and Timuchin have said, he's not wrong with the 4 for Mo. But yeah, it's just one of those things. And like Timuchin said, we're almost trying to get that perfect goal sometimes, like the Arsenal of old, trying to walk it in, trying to get that perfect play together. But realistically now, it doesn't matter how it goes in. We just need one to go in, don't we?
Yeah, like I've been saying in the past, where I would take those fluke goals. I think that's all we need. We just need something to cross that threshold and put that tally up on the board, just for the confidence boost. If nothing else, just for the confidence boost to say, hey, we can make the other team bleed.
Yeah. We
can kick them in the jaw and draw some blood. We can do this. And I think that's a big part of what our issue is. I can speak from experience growing up playing sports, that when the team I was on was under a drought of scoring, whether that be 5 minutes in a basketball game or multiple games in lacrosse, it kills the confidence of the team. You can see it very, very palpably when you're playing. And, it's hard to tell, obviously, with pro sports. They do a lot better at masking that, because they are, professional athletes. And not to mention with soccer, with the camera angles being so far away, picking up those finer details of minor facial expressions is a lot more difficult. But I can say with pretty high confidence that that's got to be affecting them. Even if they're not showing on the pitch, you bet they're showing it in the locker room.
Oh, absolutely. It has to stick in their psyche. They'll always remember those missed chances, and they'll obviously rue them.
And the thing is it's a vicious, vicious cycle, man, because let's say you play one game, you have an absolute garbage match. That's going to come into your head at some point the next match.
Yeah.
I don't care how good your mind game is. At some point, that thought's just going to twinkle in your head. Now, whether you give it time and let it stew or not, that's a totally different story. But it's coming in your head. Yeah. And the more and more matches come where we're not scoring, the more and more that little self-doubt, that little lack of confidence, that little chirping in the back of your head going, hey, this hasn't happened yet. Hey, you guys haven't done this yet in a while. That's just going to get stronger and stronger. So they just need to get something to be able to put that to rest. And I think as soon as we get 1 or 2 goals in a Premier League match, the floodgates are going to open.
Hopefully you're right, man. Absolutely. So, Paul, now that we've talked we've picked apart Bickler's ratings. I forget who was the man of the match, the actual man of the match, and who would be your man of the match. Obviously, it was Thiago's home debut and other standout performances, but
yeah, I usually don't put in the man of the match actually because I like to just kind of leave it up to discretion and see what kind of feedback we get. For me, it's probably Thiago, just because I think everything he did was like a class above in terms of his movement. I mean, he almost scored one from 20 out.
Lovely, wasn't it?
Yeah. He's the only one right now. He's so important to the side because Liverpool are at their most dangerous when they're transitioning from defense to offense. And right now that's not happening because we're soaking up so much possession that we're essentially having to break teams down inside their own 18. So somebody with his vision and ability to pass into the half space is really critical. And he's one of the best in the world at it. Unfortunately, we don't have that movement up front for that to happen. I mean, they're switching fields and things, but it's just a stacked 4 when we're up there. Up top really, and that's a problem. I mean, I think the only real way that you're going to break that down is by either making the runs, or when we're in possession, somebody's got to take somebody on and pull a second defender out of position. And that's why it was so frustrating with Mo, is because if he would have he has Shaw beaten for pace every time he's got him one-on-one. If he takes him, he's at least drawing an inside defender and opening up space for somebody like Bobby to pull in, or Monty to pull across, or even something to pop out to Thiago to hit it from range. A plethora of options open up. And like Timuchin was kind of talking about, I think there's just this general overplay from the team altogether where they want to pass it to death. And even when we get into a position where we can pass it to death, like Bobby rips his shot, and I don't want to get mad at him because we need people to put shots on frame, but like he's got Robbo and acres of space. You could have just walked. Like if we're looking to walk a goal in, we missed it.
Yeah.
So that's what's so frustrating. But yeah, I mean, I honestly think that we'll be fine, but somebody needs to get in Sadio and in Mo's ear and just be look, man, if they're gonna sit back into a low block, if they're gonna sink back into a low block, we've got to start taking people on one-on-one. We're the best we've got the best front 3 in the world at it. Like there's no reason for Mo to be just posting up with his back to a defender and just looking for somebody 4 yards away that he can dink it around to. So that's kind of where, I mean, that's my frustration with it. I mean, they'll get out of it. It's just tough to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, on the topic of Thiago and the midfield and pop shots. Yeah. I mean, Paul, you must have a sixth sense, because that was literally my next bullet point there. You know, that one in and around the 60th minute where Salah's in the box and it just rolls. He takes that extra touch. It's coming across his body, and I'm screaming at him, just hit it, just lash your boot at it and see what happens. You know, maybe something will come off it. But he didn't. He took the extra touch anyway. But a couple of things on Thiago that I wanted to briefly discuss. I read somewhere, Timuchin, that on the Sky Sports stream, because they don't pump in the fake crowd noise, Thiago was heard saying something along the lines to the team, you know, trying to G them up like Stevie G style. Like, you know, he said, or something to this effect, like a draw is not enough. You know, he was trying to G up the players. And I thought that was a great thing to see, because, you know, he already gets what, well, I mean, he's a world-class player. He knows what it is to play in a big derby, even though it's not a derby, it's a massive rivalry. But John Barnes as well has come out today saying something along the lines. Now, I love Barnesy, like, brilliant player for us, absolute magician on the left wing. But he said something that having Thiago in the side is slowing down our movement, which I didn't really agree with. I just wanted to sort of cast it out there and see what you guys would think, because John Barnes is very opinionated as a pundit. Most of them are. Love him or loathe him, those opinions can, they're his own opinions, whatever. But I just thought it was a little off the mark for me. I think on his home debut as well, he's still improving, coming back from injury as well. Let's talk about Thiago, and then you can say what you want about John Barnes.
Yeah, I read that about like Barnes' comments, and I mean, I know what he's saying, but I just don't agree with it. I think, if all things were equal, then yeah, maybe you can go back to Thiago, but you have this, I mean, what I would consider really kind of like a makeshift midfield that had, to my knowledge, never played together before for us. So like to pin it on Thiago, I thought he was the only one that was more actually like switching play, I thought. I mean, that's where we miss Hendo in that midfield. I mean, people always complain about, sideways, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like he's the one that probably moves the ball the fastest. A couple of games ago when we had Milner there, you could kind of tell the ball does not move as fast. We kind of miss Hendo in midfield in that sense to be able to kind of like, swing the play a lot faster and things like that. One thing I do notice as we watch, I mean, we watch this team all the time. But you can kind of tell that they're not used to Thiago's passes yet. Yeah. There are times where, there was a pass that he kind of like lobbed over to Trent, whereas normally that pass would go on the ground to Trent. And whereas I find that he leads people more into those areas, especially for like Trent and Robo. And I think it's going to take a bit more of time, like to kind of get used to him in that sense. But man, I mean, the guy's vision, his touch on the ball and willingness to take people on is spot on. I mean, I think if we have, and this goes back to, my biggest issue right now is we just got to go back to our regular midfield and get Hendo in that midfield and stuff like that. I think so that we can kind of do the counter press a lot better, play a lot faster, and hopefully be able to like break down defenses. It just becomes that, we become a bit more too predictable in that sense. But Thiago kind of takes that away. I think he's the only person on the team that we watch. I don't even know what he's going to do. You know what I mean? Like there's a ball like rolls back to Hendo. You're like, Hendo is going to curve that towards the back post to Mane. I mean, you know exactly what's going to happen. I feel like Thiago is the only player out there right now that you just don't know what the heck he's going to do with the ball. And that kind of is hard to defend against as opposed to, knowing what's coming at you. So I know what he's saying in terms of like maybe he did hold the ball too long at times. I'm assuming that's what he's hinting at in terms of slowing down the pace. But he was really the only one doing the distributing. That's not really Genie's thing. He's just going to give you the work rates and steal the ball and stuff. But I thought Shaq did well too. But I think we talked about it before. I always prefer Shaq to come off the bench to spark as opposed to he's not as good, I feel. I mean, there's always exceptions. I'm sure people can point out the games, but I feel like he's better coming off the bench. I just feel like we got to get Hendo back in midfield. I think a midfield of Hendo, Genie, Thiago would be a lot more effective.
And, I noticed you missed out Fabinho. Obviously, we're a while off getting Fabinho back in.
You've forgotten him that he either believe freaking played.
We're a while off that time, because realistically, there's been so many variables and variations of the centre-back pairing. Fabinho and Henderson, they did do fantastic against United. I'm looking at their stats right now. 91% passing, 187 touches, 3 out of 3 tackles, 9 clearances, and a clean sheet. And that's probably the first time they've been paired together for full 90 minutes. Is it? I think so.
On our back line?
Yeah.
Could be, because I can't remember if he changed around the last time Hendo played at center back.
But Fabinho, another one. He did well. Another one with those great pop shots. We're in much the way we're missing a scrappy little goal going in the 6 yards. We're missing that screamer, that worldie going in, just a shot in anger, like we were talking about earlier on. Just and I flippantly said in our Discord channel, our private chat, that Fabinho's probably going to have to relearn how to be a midfielder soon. He's definitely going to have to relearn how to shoot. I mean, he may be shooting in the practice games, but we're a while off that yet. But like you said, the midfield, it's going to be. And Klopp even joked about Thiago being a new signing. I think that's his second start for us now. But it's all these variations, and it's just going to be so nice to have two centre backs back there and let the midfielders do their job. And my mouth is watering just thinking, Parker, of Thiago and Hendo and Fab and whoever else can do their job in midfield. Let them do their job in midfield, and one day we'll have our centre backs back.
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking a lot, especially lately. It's been coming a lot more clear. Is I think part of our issue offensively is having that broken up defense. Not having Hendo up in the midfield, and especially not having Virgil. His distribution from the back line is incredible, and also the fact that we can pop him out on the corner, and he's a massive target. Even if we don't necessarily pass it to him, that's one more, or at most times two more players. Pulling off other guys. I mean, think about it. Virgil's this massive. What is he? 6'6", 6'7", probably. This giant of a man. You put him in front of a corner, people are going to be watching him like hawks. So even if you can't get it to him, that means one man's open somewhere. So I think that's a big part of our scoring issue, is just having it be broken. And even if we didn't have, Virgil, but we had a regular center back, we'd still be in a lot better position, because, the team practices a certain way for certain positions. That's what players are used to playing. Not saying that Hendo's bad at playing center back, because he's not. He's doing a great job at it, but that's not the position he's most comfortable in. And I think if we had everything back to the way it was, we'd be in a lot better shape, especially offensively. I think defensively we're still doing good. I mean, Fab and Hendo did help for a clean sheet. That ain't easy.
Yeah.
Especially against a team like United. It's not like we were playing Sheffield or something and threw a clean sheet.
But I think part of that is because we're playing different too. I mean, that defense looks a lot better than it normally would, because we're not playing the same way we did. Like we don't have both, Robo and Trent running up top. We're just not doing the same things we were. And obviously that kind of like affects our shooting. What I find is that time of podcast where I hijack the topic. But what I find odd is, I always felt like having, even though it's kind of a disadvantage, obviously, having two midfielders play center back for you, I thought the advantage of that would be, especially against teams that, sit back, we would have two guys with great ball distributing skills playing center back.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll be able to have them contribute more. But I don't see that as much. I still see, either like Thiago or Gini, somebody coming to receive the ball. I was really hoping, I don't know. Obviously, the United game, we were more afraid of the counter. And so, we didn't want them to push up and stuff. But I thought, against other teams, we could have taken advantage of those guys being able to be good on the ball compared to a regular center back, and be able to kind of push up and help create. I mean, that's one thing I think Matip does really well, especially at home games, is him with his awkward running, pushing up, takes everybody out of their spot, location, changes the entire shape of the defense, and creates openings behind. I really thought we would see more of that with Hendo and Fab playing as center back, and I don't think we have.
And I was going to get onto that, Paul, about you can kind of sense the trepidation from the back, and I guess that's probably why we're not seeing quite as many adventurous balls. They're not center backs, they're not ball playing center halves. You know what I mean? They're stopgaps for right now. But let me throw it to you. So, how do you feel about the whole situation right now, center backs, midfielders, and then I'll throw you a real life devil's advocate type idea.
I mean, I just hate it in general. I hate Jordan Henderson on a back line. I understand it. I think it makes sense, especially in the last game where you don't want to put relatively young kids in a huge rivalry game, especially relatively young. Well, Nat's up there. He's 23 or whatever. But, You don't want
Inexperienced.
to. Yes, inexperienced. You don't want to put inexperience on the back line, especially inexperience where the main concern is pace. Against the counter-attacking side that's going up against, Rashford and just pace down the wings in general. So I understand it. I think Timuchin sort of hit on it. We're missing that big switch that we got from Verge, that big switch from left to right that hits Trent down the flank. That's gone. I thought it was interesting. They switched Fab and Jordan's side. Well, I think we discussed it earlier, but I think they did start a cup match together, if I remember right. And they switched. They had Jordan next to Trent. They switched him for this game and put Fab over there. And I was wondering if we'd see more of that big switch, and we just didn't. I think there's a level of conservative play that we've reached along the back. Just because of the moving parts that we're dealing with. It's
self-doubt creeping in, it's like,
I mean, you don't like Jordan Henderson. I mean, Fab's had more experience because Fab was a traditionally trained right back for a long time in his younger years. So he played along the back. Jordan hasn't. So he's not naturally thinking of the line in general. He's just spent like the last probably 6 weeks getting drilled on holding the back line, you know what I mean? And so, like, I think there's a level of conservative play that comes along with that I think does hurt us.
And even Fabinho said that training along Matip has made him a better centre-back,
Right,
so Jordan hasn't got that luxury right now. Matip's not in training, so he has no actual centre-back to learn the trade off, But
it's like getting trained by the assistant manager. It's always a little bit tough.
Lost in translation, exactly.
Yeah.
So my real life devil's advocate, which I like to do, by the way, just in case those who don't know me, I like to throw it in there now, and a spanner in the spokes, so to speak. Like we were saying earlier on, it's going to be a while before Fab can move into midfield again. Is there a point to be made that obviously we don't like having Hendo back there? Obviously we're not enjoying even Fabinho back there, even though he's doing a stellar job. Is there a point to be made? Is there a reason to keep this partnership going? Because it seems to be a problem this year, obviously with the injuries, that we haven't had a partnership at centre-back. It was Van Dijk was out. Then it was Gomez. Then it was Matip. So we haven't had a twosome. Is there an argument to be made to keep those two at the back? Because we are kind of... Well, we're not loaded with midfielders. We're stricken all over the place. We're down Ox, we're down Naby. But is there any reason that we should keep that as a pairing?
Not for me. I think Jordan's too important to the midfield. I think it's too important for the midfield. And for me, if you don't want to dip into the transfer market, I understand it. And I totally get it. And I'm not upset about it like a lot of our supporters would be. I don't think it's the difference. I don't think the transfer market's the difference between us winning a title and losing a title. And I think that if you've got the confidence to give the young kids the minutes you've already given them, then you have to figure it out between Reece and Nat, and even Billy coming healthy now. You've got to figure it out between that. I mean, I think I would rather have a little bit of inexperience at a natural position than experience at a position that's critical for our team back there. I think we've got to stop weakening our midfield to like plug a hole. Yep. You know what I mean? I at some point, you've got to put your best players in their best position and stop trying to put your best players in a position just to fill a need, in my opinion. So, we'll see what happens, right? I mean, maybe we'll see a little bit of both. Maybe we'll see Jordan in some of these big games back there against pacier teams. But for me, we lose too much when he's back there. I'd like to see us roll the dice.
And that's precisely why I was trying to be that devil's advocate. I'm trying to squeeze that little gem of knowledge out of you, Paul. And it's the same.
That's a hard squeeze.
It's a hard squeeze. It's like getting blood from a stone, but I got it.
Yeah. All right, I'm done. Thanks, guys. I'll see you later.
But I mean, all fans can echo Paul's thoughts there, Parker, right? I mean, we are beginning to put square pegs in round holes, etc. So, it's just one of those things where we're caught in a real catch-22 that we're covering our arse to spite our face. You know what I mean? So
I think one thing, Paul, that you didn't mention too that I haven't seen brought up a lot actually, is the part that is Hendo's leadership on the pitch. We saw those videos earlier this season of him yelling, screaming, giving commands, communicating, doing really well. And again, this might just be me not being as experienced with the defending position since, I'm 5'6". No one's putting me on a back line anywhere unless I'm playing against toddlers. But I feel like it'd be a lot harder to do that communication as effectively and do that leadership as effectively when you're sat there on the back line versus in the midfield where you're kind of gelling a lot more forward and backward and getting further up the field. I mean, just naturally speaking, that's less distance your voice has to carry to be able to, communicate with everyone. So I think that's got to be a factor in it too somewhere.
Well, now let's dip into our defenders union here. We've got Timichin here, who is our in-house.
I was gonna say they put short guys in defense. Yeah,
he's a natural wing back.
I mean, when I played beer league in college, I was playing with a bunch of kids that were about 6'2", 6'3", so I was really the little guy. You put a short guy in a Dutch school, he's going to be feeling real short.
But, I hear your argument. It used to be back in the day that, goalkeepers were always the captains and centre backs were always the captains. So to mention, I mean, talk us through what your opinion would be of that. Like, obviously, captain armband goes to those who are most vocal in general. However, Stevie G kind of bucked that trend. He did have Cara on his backline. Carragher was the vocal one, and Jamie Carragher's quoted as saying as much. Jamie Carragher's style was very vocal. Like, even with the fans at capacity, you could always hear Carragher screaming watching the game. Gerrard wasn't that type of player, so he needed that vocalness, and he got that from Carragher. It's more difficult, I would say, to be a captain from the back, but it's doable, right?
I mean, I always felt like you have a better vision of the field compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, I played sweeper. I mean, if you're a center back, especially if you're a center back, I think, not like a wing back or something like that, but you have the whole vision of the field. And I honestly do not think that's what we're losing out of it. You can still hear them yelling. And trust me, that voice can carry if you're pissed. If somebody's not tracking from midfield, I would make sure the entire field and the next field over and the next town over would freaking hear it if you're not tracking your guy back. I mean, I think, you will make that heard. And I think, we're not, but at the end of the day, kind of like, Paul is saying, we took the player of the year and just changed his position to fill a hole. And I don't think that's a smart move. I mean,
yeah.
Whether you agree it was him or De Bruyne or whatever, but I mean, pretty much, leading candidate, top candidate for player of the year in this position, we just kind of like taking him out of there and putting him somewhere else to kind of fill a void where even though, I mean, he's kind of like the kind of guy, he leads by example as well, kind of like Milner. He's going to do whatever. I mean, you put him in goal, he'll be a goalie, but in terms of efficiency and what you're getting, obviously, your returns are really diminished when you play the guy out of position. I think that's the biggest thing we're missing is like what he brings overall, switching the ball. And yeah, I mean, being up there, obviously you can get in the ear of, like Mo and Mane and stuff like that a lot more. But I mean, I've been in games where the loudest person is the goalie in the back. And
yeah.
Shit, if I can hear him from all the way up in the stands, I know everybody on the field is hearing him too. So, I mean, I don't think we're losing that as much. I just feel like we're losing what he brings to the play as a whole in terms of like switching the ball a lot faster, the work rate overall. And then that work rate, when you have the work rate there, it pushes the people around you to that work rate as well. And having Hendo in midfield provides a lot better support for Trent, which lets him push up a lot more. And I know his delivery has been poor and stuff like that, but I think that's almost like a matter of time too. It's just being able to connect on one so that, more keeps coming. I think we lose all those little things and we can go on and on about, what Hendo brings. we're losing all those little things so that he can play center back because we don't have a center back. And that's why that's the key. And I agree with Paul. I mean, I would rather have a sign, and I will be disappointed if we don't sign somebody. I'm not going to be like FSG out, but, I think, we talked about this months ago on a podcast when we saw Lauren, and we said, hey, I mean, let's hope there's a plan to bring somebody in for him. And at that time, we had the example of City, how they freaking collapsed. They're trying to play like, their best defensive midfielder in that position to fill a hole, and basically just fell apart. And then we ran away with it. Seeing that example, I would have thought we would have been smarter going into the season selling Lovren. And I know it's a freak thing to have your top two center backs out for the year, kind of an injury too, not even like out a month or out 2 months or something like that. But still, man, I just feel like, if buying one center back, and yeah, you might have to overpay, or even if it's a loan or whatever, is going to be able to put a lot more other people into where they're going to succeed, I think it's well worth the investment. It's just a matter of, is that person available? And it doesn't help that everybody in the world knows that Liverpool needs center backs. So
the craziest thing about this is we've done this before in recent history with Klopp. Remember when we went down like 5 center backs and we were starting Lucas Leiva back there?
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't that long ago. I mean, that was like, I think Skirtle, Edgar, and like 2 of our other guys went down. And like, so, I mean, we've seen this before. Yeah. But Timuchin brings up a good point about Ferdinand at City. Like sometimes it's good to have an emergency plan in place. And if 2020 doesn't teach you anything about that, in our recent history about
you ain't learning
about center backs in general. Yeah, I don't know why they're. I mean, I hope there's something that we're missing. So
I mean, look, it with international travel bans and all this with Corona, depleted funds because of no fans. There's all sorts of reasons why we possibly won't sign a center back, and you brought up Billy Camudio. He started, him and Sepp Vandenberg started for the under-23s today. Who knows? Who knows what will eventually happen down the line. But
and Sepp got me into the match.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yep. I think that's interesting because a lot of people are out on him already. So it'll be interesting to see.
Absolutely.
I thought the rumor was he was going to be loaned out actually to get some more playing time, right?
Yeah. So they're trying to loan him right now. So we'll see what happens.
But exactly. We will see what happens. Hopefully it all gets sorted out, and maybe there is a plan set in place for the summer. Who knows? But it's just bad times, and it's crazy, really, isn't it? I know we've spent most of our time waffling on here about the United game and the permutations of who's going to play centre back and who's not. But in essence, putting Hendo back there is certainly easier than a complete overhaul of our formation and style. It's certainly much easier than going to a 3-5-2 or some craziness like that just to accommodate our midfielders in midfield and our one acknowledged centre back in Fabinho. It's just a crazy time, lads. I don't know much else to say about it. We could sit here and talk on and on all about it, but we can talk a wee bit about Burnley because that's who we face next, and we all know what sort of football they want to play. It's going to be more of the same, isn't it? That low block type bullshit that we're going to be faced with. So yeah, who wants to take the reins on this one? I'll open up the floor. Who's gonna lead us into the Burnley charge, lads? Don't all shy away from the microphones at once. Go on.
Timuchin loves Burnley.
I knew he was gonna go after me for that too. Yes, I hate Sean Douche with a passion.
Sean Dyche?
It's the ugly old. I mean, when British soccer was not as popular, when the Italian league was a top league, it just reminds me of those days where just put the ball in the box, kick the guy, if you take the ball, you take the ball. Otherwise, you just kick the guy. That kind of like an old school defending, just ugly sports that I just kind of like well, the entire world didn't like watching at the time. You know what I mean? Before, like, you know, more.
It hasn't changed much now either.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think it's just gonna be, you know, like Groundhog Day, Groundhog Match, whatever you're gonna call it. It's just gonna be the same thing again. I think. I just hope after maybe they'll listen to the podcast and put Hendo back in midfield, even if it's like, you know, putting Phillips back there with his size. Because I know, like, Williams, we're afraid of like the speed overall.
But it's going to be a more physical game, you know.
Exactly. So I think you will need that size there. A team that's a lot better at set pieces and stuff like that. So you will need that size back there. So I just hope he comes back in there. And honestly, man, you're going to have to keep going at this so you kind of get out of the slump. I just see it as that the skill and everything is out there. And then hopefully, you know, a little spark is all it's going to take to, you know, we always talk about like mentality monsters and stuff like that, but I mean, winning breeds more winning, and unfortunately, you know, not winning is the same way. So it's just a matter of kind of like switching the cycle, and I think it's going to take a game or two. Let's hope this is the game, because we got some tough fixtures coming up after this.
Yeah, and lads, I'll open it up to yourselves, Parker or Paul. You can fight over who wants to talk about it. But you know, I said a couple of pods back, it's that type of, you know, heavy lies the crown deal where teams know what we're about, so they're going to set up in a way that can counter that, and that low block anti-football style is kind of going to frustrate us, you know. So I think it's a good time off the back of United, which, you know, United didn't come at us, which I thought I kind of foolishly thought they would, thinking, you know, oh, well, they're top of the league. Maybe they want to embarrass us, but they didn't really. They sat back, and in a way, you know, their counter-attacking football didn't really faze us too much. So in a way, it's good that we've had that game. It's good that we didn't lose our home record, because we would have all probably been hanging on the end of a rope on this podcast. But, you know, I think it's a good time for us to play them. I think it's a good time for us to try and get our goal against this low block setup that we're inevitably going to face. With United in mind as well, they play Fulham on the Wednesday. So that's they get an extra day's rest as well. And then we play them in the Cup on Sunday. But we're going to get a goal on Thursday night, lads, aren't we? Have to.
None of us sound super confident about it.
I was going to say, everybody was just like that. Nobody wants to stick their head out on this one after watching the last
connection on that minutes, one. Don't worry. We'll blame
it has just to be a matter of time. Yeah. We're going to keep the faith.
But
I mean, Burnley's got good center backs. I mean, Tarkowski, Ben Mee, they're good. I mean, the problem is, we've just got to start. We're going to have to beat them inside their own 18. We're going to have to start getting in the box. People are going to have to start taking people on. You know, Mane and Mo are going to have to start making the runs if we're passing from the back. It's just going to take. I mean, it's going to be a straight effort thing. I think at this point, it's like, how bad do you want it? You know, like, it's going to have to be a straight effort thing. We'll be fine versus Burnley as long as we stay away from freaking corner kicks. Like, because they've got a bunch of big dumb animals that get up there. Chris Wood and a bunch of guys that it's total meatheads that come up there and like slab it in from 6 yards on some ugly cross. So I mean, we'll be fine as long as we can keep them away from those situations.
And
no
Parker,
promises.
You know, no promises.
No promises. We'll score though.
Yeah,
that's
right.
for sure.
Well, they say, Parker, you know, insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. But in a way, Paul's right. It's the war of attrition. We just got to keep pounding on that door, and eventually it's going to happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the famous Wayne Gretzky shot, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. We got to just keep peppering the goal.
Yeah.
You know, it sucks in the meantime when you look at that column and see, you know, we took 10 shots on goal, 2 were on target, none of them went in. But if you just sit there and you wait for that golden, magical, perfect opportunity that apparently exists, you're going to be waiting forever.
Yeah.
Especially when, freaking pass at the Robbo.
Also that. But, if you keep waiting and biding your time too much, like the old adage of biting your tongue so long you bite it off, you're going to screw yourself. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. I think as long as we play aggressive, we take shots that, maybe some are risky. Some of them are shots that we would say are dumb shots to take outside the box or something. I don't really know. But, just be inventive, be creative, and, we can come away with multiple goals in this thing, break that drought, and leave very happy.
Exactly. I mean, listeners, as always, thanks for joining us. We're probably going to end shortly, but we've got a little fun game we're going to play here, and hopefully one day any of the listeners can get involved. It's an old thing from the UK. I believe it started with George Orwell, the book 1984. So it's probably given everybody nightmares just mentioning that book of high school days. But it's called Room 101. It was adapted into a television program. Essentially, what the idea is, I'm going to pose this question to the panel here. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to come up with one topic, whether it be big or small, that we're going to banish into the abyss, into Room 101, never to rear its ugly head again. So, for instance, mine would be, lads, and we can discuss this ourselves. I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure that this will be a resounding yes. We're getting this thrown into Room 101. First one, a resounding yes. What I suggest we throw into Room 101 is playing to the fucking whistle, referee. And that's in reference to the first half when Mane was clean through on fucking goal with 5 seconds left. Sorry for the profane Irish language, but my God, play to the whistle. Lads, are you with me? Can we get rid of that forever?
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
All right.
Second the motion there.
Second the motion.
All right,
perfect.
Unanimous.
So do we have any other little ideas or anything that's grinded your gears to the point, whether it be the notion of fandom and, I've watched the game for 4 decades, I'm better than you, or what is it that's going to really grind your gears this week?
Yeah, I was going to pitch in and say that actually, that it's kind of shocking to hear how people will be like, oh, well, you've only followed for this amount of time. Or even like if you get on Reddit, you'll see a bunch of English people be like, oh, get out, Yank.
Yeah.
Like, just because I don't live in Liverpool doesn't mean I'm not a fan.
Exactly. Your fandom is much as appreciated as anybody else's. Your money is just as green as anybody else's.
Not only that, but you can make the argument it literally takes more effort for me to try to watch the match.
Big time.
I have to
even
find
the people on the West Coast have to stay up all night.
Yeah. So I would say the whole, like, you have to be this tall to ride this ride. You have to be a fan for this long to be a true fan. Let's bend that.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I'm sure the lads are too. Paul, have you got one for us?
Jesus, one? How long are we at? Are we doing?
You can do mine too if you want. Just go for it.
We can do a whole Room 101 podcast when this takes off, but one for now.
Okay, one per week. Are you writing these down? Because we're going to forget them.
No, I've got a massive ream of paper, right? Like a big newspaper reel, and they're just feeding into the abyss.
Okay. I feel like I could put a Grinch list together for this. So one thing that I am really over, probably because I just belong to too many Facebook groups, is like I am really over, since we are rolling into week 20 this season, anything related to why is the match on Peacock? Peacock app sucks.
That was mine, man.
Peacock app sucks. You can't rewind on it. All NBC is trying to do is make money. Yeah, that's true. They're a television company, so they are trying to make money by putting games on the app you have to subscribe to.
I am so glad that I didn't bring this up when I was talking about your ratings, because you made a lovely little dig about Peacock in that, and I'm so glad I didn't.
I did, and I don't normally, but sometimes you got to do things for the general audience that you don't normally do. I mean, I hoard myself. I hoard myself out a little bit on that one. But yes, like I just like. I don't understand it. It's $5.99 a month. I know there are a lot of things people have to subscribe to. It's still, for me, it's still substantially less money than following any other team. Like for me, like, I mean, Parker's from my home state, so he get this. If I want to watch every Pistons game this year, I'm paying for a $300 league pass for NBA. If I want to catch the Lions every out of market game, I don't know why anyone would want to do that to themselves, but if I wanted to, it's another $300.
So, Lions should be paying you to watch it.
Listen, really? Let me talk to Michin. But my point is, it's like
in there. Hold on 1 second.
But people, you don't ever hear about anybody being like, "Oh, the NFL is just exploitation of people trying to make more money off stuff." Like nobody has a problem dropping $300 on a league pass for the NFL, but we're taking a sport from another country, coming all the way across, and providing coverage that you guys can get and replay for the most part at any point. And like all of a sudden, $5.99 a month is a deal breaker for people that are probably buying $40 worth of coffee in a week. Like I don't understand it. Like I'm so tired. And like the fact that people are like bringing this up 20 games into the season to me is like people are like, "Oh, where's the pregame?" I'm like, dude, have you not watched any of the other 20 games that were on? Like at least probably 10 of our games have been on Peacock.
Right.
Like there's never pregame. It's on NBC because NBC owns it.
Stop beating the horse. It's already dead, you know?
But yeah, it's like,
I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying, 20 games into the season, they're just getting it, you know?
Yeah. Like I don't get it. And we're going to do it every single fucking week. And I just I literally want to just slam my head in the refrigerator door. I'm so over it.
I have two notes on that real quick. First of all, if you're an Xfinity customer here for your internet, you can get Peacock for free. So
people would still bitch, Parker.
Oh, I know.
Would still bitch.
Oh yeah,
I know.
But I have to change channels, Parker, to watch the pregame.
Still a little FYI for people out there that want to save that $5. They even give you a nice little box that sits and collects dust. It's great.
More importantly, as a former grocery retail worker, if anyone needs advice on how to save $5.99 a month, please hit me up. You guys can @ me. I will show you how to shop for groceries that will save you $5.99 over the course of an entire month.
Oh, I'm taking you on that shit.
My second point on that is more of a question that I think, honestly, Tim, you might be the only one that can answer, but
what?
Holy shit, what kind of a question is that?
So 20 years ago, like, what was trying to watch
did not go there.
A match like? Because, I was 5 then, so I'm
so what is the question, apart from me being old?
Yeah, Parker's asking what it's like to be old.
I mean, yeah, mostly. But, what was trying to watch and catch your team's matches for a game that's played in a different country, 20 years ago?
Oh, they had advertisements during the bloody games. I remember.
Ew.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I couldn't tell you how many viruses I've received or how much malware I've gotten trying to follow Liverpool and Fenerbahce over the years since I came over here. I mean, first of all, it was semi-impossible. I mean, when I was in college and stuff like that, because I'm that old, Parker. This internet thing is not as old as you think it is. So, before that became popular, you could kind of stream some stuff. I mean, and that was all illegal streams and malware at your own risk kind of deal. So I'm glad you asked me this question, though. It really means a lot.
Timuchin's wife she was really relieved when she found out that the computer wasn't ruined from porn. It was just from trying to stream games.
It was his love of Fenerbahce and Liverpool that really
there's
pushed
always
the boat
a
over
good
the
cover. You could always blame any virus or malware to your soccer feeds because you could never be anything else. But
nonetheless, that's kind of the point I wanted to make. Is it's so much easier now? Yeah, okay, I have to
get porn or
on a different app. Ooh,
all of
an
it.
official way I can watch the match at my fingertips. I don't have to deal with dial-up. I don't have to deal with that slow of internet comparatively, and it's not that far delayed. I'm not sitting there watching it on, a ticker on ESPN.com or something. We have it at our fingertips. Yeah. Is it perfect? No, not in the least bit. But it's a whole lot better than it could be. So, yeah, I'm with you there, Paul.
Well, I was reading apparently in Uganda, people are losing their mind right now because there's a whole bunch of political unrest. I can't really remember the details of it, but somebody literally turned off their internet for a week. And all these these fantasy league players in Uganda are losing their mind because it was double game week points and shit. So, I mean, think about that. We have the luxury of internet, but we're all right there with you, Paul. We're throwing the Peacock hubbub straight into room 101. Timuchin, you've had time now to think up another of one of your gripe. What really grinds your gears? What's going into room 101?
Stole that from me because, man, I was thinking the same thing this week. The worst thing was they were like, why would they put the Liverpool United game on Peacock instead of some other lowly game? I'm like, maybe they're trying to make money?
Because
it's like they understand. It's like they understand business. It's weird.
How supply and demand. I took second grade economics.
One thing that really gets on my nerves is I kind of like Paul because of the website and stuff like that in a lot of groups and like especially like official like supporter club groups and stuff like that as well. But honestly, I see it in the bigger groups a lot more of people suddenly turning on a player, and somebody can be out of form, but you should not probably post in the 17 minutes of the game and say Firmino shit or Mo is shit and stuff like that, because they did not become shit overnight. I mean, just because they haven't scored or they missed a chance and stuff like that. The overreaction of suddenly a player that you were singing his song freaking like 6 months ago, and then he was like the best forward 8 months ago or 2 weeks ago. I mean, when we beat Crystal Palace 7-0, this 3 was back to being the best in the world and stuff. That's what kills me is mid-game posts we can do. I'll say that for next week. But more than that, the posts about just calling players shit is unreal to me. Because
is this about me and Divock?
What?
Is this about me and Divock?
I actually thought about that. As I was saying, I'm like, he's gonna take this personally.
Because I'm right in the room. I'm right here.
But even then, you never called Divock, shit. I mean, I think it's okay to be frustrated with a player or like an error. I mean, there was a time, there was a moment in the game where like Trent headed the ball straight into the corner, and I was like, oh, come on, man, Trent. But I would never be like, Trent, you shit. Yeah. It's like, are you freaking serious? The overreaction. Let's just please throw it away.
I despise it. I despise it. And, for some strange reason, people latch on to one sort of player. Like Lallana was that a couple of years back. I hate that. So I'm right there with you. I think that kind of toxicity is not warranted. And
even people do it to players that haven't even got much of a chance to shine. Like I saw a couple weeks ago,
Minamino
on Takumi, and it's like he's barely had more than maybe 120 minutes on the pitch.
It's just unfair.
Can't genuinely make in good faith a call saying he's a garbage player with that little time.
I'm definitely with you, Timuchin, on that one. That one needs to get binned forever.
That's a good one.
Flush it down.
So that's it. First time out for Room 101, and we're throwing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things in there? That's brilliant.
Are we throwing the Detroit Lions in there too, or is that what
we can?
So, listeners, if you enjoyed that little bit of fun, we'll see if we can make that a weekly segment. And if you want to get involved, throw your comments to us on Twitter or Instagram or on Facebook. And as always, it's a pleasure to have you, lads and listeners. Good fun, and we'll see you next week, I guess. We'll be back again with more antics, LFC antics. So as always, tune in and cop out with us reprobates at AmericanScouser.com, folks. If you're in need of any more wonderful news or blogs, head on over to the American Scouser website. We've got you covered there. So lads, thanks for joining me. All the best. You'll never walk alone.
Oh, come on.
Never walk alone, guys.
Oh, Paul bailed.
Damn, Paul's gone